Now, it's pretty universally agreed that one of the reasons people have felt prosperous the last few years is that the cost of things like clothes have been driven down and down. The reason you can buy cheap T-shirts is because of where and how they're made. But what would happen if young people with a passion for fashion discovered how their clothes were made? That was the idea behind Blood, Sweat and T-shirts, a BBC Three series which finished tonight. 6 fashion fanatics were made to pick cotton, work in factories in Delhi and Mumbai, and for the most part live like Indian workers on the wages they managed to make. The 2 of the girls who took part in that film are here in the studio. They are Georgina Bryars and Stacey Dooley, and with them from the British Retail Consortium, which represents many of the major high street retailers, Jane Milne. It obviously affected you both pretty seriously, didn't it?
For sure, didn't it?
100%.
We came back as Mary Poppins, didn't we? Yeah. We flew back.
But has it been a sort of permanent change? Has it affected how you behave, how you think about clothes?
Oh, definitely, 150%. I mean, before, I didn't even really think about where my clothes came from. It's just something that didn't even, like most people, I reckon, not something you really think about. But now, every time I go into a shop or every time I see a new outfit, I'm like, you know, thinking about where, I want to know where my clothes are being made.
But previously, you were prepared, you said in the clip there, you were prepared to go and buy something, wear it once or twice, I mean, never wear it again.
Yeah.
And you can only do that if it's very cheap, of course.
Exactly. I was the queen of cheap fashion, as you would say. I just loved spending money. You know, if it was expensive, cheap, whatever, I'd just go out, and it just didn't bother me. And
Stacey, has it affected how you now view clothes?
For sure. Like, it's affected me in so many ways, like you wouldn't believe. It sounds a bit cheesy, but it changes your life, doesn't it, Joy? Yeah. Like me, I was just like, got to get with the groove, got to sort it out, because you see things and it's like, you can't catch your breath, you're like, wiping your eyes. It's just, it's completely changed me.
But you still buy cheap clothes?
I never really bought, like, super-duper cheap clothes anyway, but I used to shop on the high street often, and I buy things still from the high street, but we do check the labels, don't we, and things like that, and you
definitely.
just think.
You see, how are they to know the conditions under which clothes have been made? That's the big problem, isn't it?
Well, retailers, the leading retailers, put quite a lot of effort into understanding exactly how things are made because they share exactly those concerns. The major brands do not want to be associated with the very poor practices that we saw
All of the major brands? Because I don't think we're going to name them right now, the ones that don't play by these rules, but you and I both know that some of them have serious reservations about taking part in some of these schemes.
The major clothing brands that are members of the British Retail
Precisely, but they're not all
are
members of you,
engaged. Well, I can only speak for BRC members, but they are engaged in the Ethical Trading Initiative and similar things to address precisely these problems.
Georgina, when you got back, you tried to contact some of the major high street retailers, didn't you? What did you do?
I sent letters and emails to hundreds of different stores, all of my favourite stores, stores that I've shopped in regularly, you know, ever since I was little. And I didn't get any response. No one would really tell me where my clothes were being made.
You don't mean hundreds, you mean you wrote many letters and emails?
It was pushed, yeah, probably.
And did you get any responses?
I got 2 responses.
2 responses?
Yeah.
You see, that's the problem, isn't it?
Well, I think there are 2 ways that we can help move things forward here. The first is the general approach that companies are taking under things like the ETI, where it is...
The ETI being?
The Ethical Trading Initiative, which is about getting a basic level of assurance in place so that the retailer can reassure themselves that the supply chain is employing people on fair standards, consistent with the International Labour Organisation
You ever
standards.
heard of this scheme?
No.
How are they to know whether the stuff's being ethically made?
It's not that isn't a scheme that has the customer in view in terms of the brand. It's things like fair trade.
This is not going to change until consumers say we are not having clothes that are made by children in disgusting conditions. How are they to be able to make their mind up?
Well, some consumers are very concerned about that,
Yeah,
and
how are they to know?
that's what schemes like the Fair Trade scheme is all about, so that if you want to be assured that that particular product has been made in a particular way, then for people for whom that is really important, you can do that. For most consumers, cost and convenience are the main drivers, and in those circumstances, the retailers are concerned that they continue to do business in an ethical way, and therefore they are handling that within their supply chain.
Are you persuaded by this, girls?
With the fair trade thing, and this is something that I've been looking at, there's no real things out there. I've seen a couple of things that say fair trade on them. There's nothing really. There's a demand out there from the people that I've spoken to for fair trade items, but there's not. You know, the retailers haven't put the infrastructure there to get the demand out to the consumers. So I think something needs to be done. You know, there are people who do want fair trade, but who's to know? You know, at the moment, no one knows where their clothes are coming from.
So you need transparency, you see.
For some consumers, that is absolutely essential.
And going on about some consumers, is it not always ethically unacceptable to be selling shops on our high streets made by children in disgusting conditions? Isn't that always wrong?
Is exactly why major retailers are engaging with their suppliers and auditing their supply chains in order to make sure that that isn't happening.
Supposing there were a law brought in that the authorities here could prosecute retailers who sold clothes made in unacceptable conditions, what would you think about that?
Well, major retailers are concerned that the International Labour Organisation standards, which is the legal situation in many countries, is complied with, and that's what we're working towards.
Did you think all of the conditions that we saw in that film were acceptable?
Absolutely not, and I think you will find that the major retailers are not doing business with those factories where the conditions really aren't acceptable.
For me, I think probably the most important thing is to do, like, we're not worldly women, we're not even saying that, but we're like two shoppers who are typical shoppers.
Just typical shoppers.
And we just need to let everyone know, like, this is the crap, like, this is what happens. They're working.
And there are for UK high streets.
Baby, yeah, and it's for like
for places to go to, especially the ones where we found the children.
I think maybe like if the shop's got a bit tougher and we're just like, we're not gonna get gear off you unless we know where it's from, like we just won't do it. And if every high street shop did that, then they won't have any clothes.
Which is what they're doing. That's why they're auditing their supply chains, to make sure that they really do understand, and where they discover, because we can't solve this problem overnight. This is something that we need to work on over a period of years and help those suppliers actually improve their standards.
But it's the conditions as well.
Right, okay, good. Thank you all very much. Thank you both for coming in.